tirade is very long, so I try to be as quick as possible to just have to share some ideas.
Ele sabe que está todo mundo cansado, ele também, então ele vai tentar ser o mais breve possível para compartilhar as ideias.
Okay, so I've been told I should speak about how to practice. I wish I could have an answer like, okay, you go to supermarket, you take this pill, you take the pill twice a day before lunch, before dinner, and then you can practice. But I have no answer actually like this. So you got the point, right? We don't need to translate. Yeah, you understood. So I've tried. Sometimes I will look because I don't remember too much cachaça and so on. I have mainly 4 points. So for me, at least, the first point is not how to practice, but how to want to practice. Because I actually never want to practice, and I try to practice a little as I can. And I remember when I was young, I was trying to practice, and I spent hours, and then I didn't get any work done. It was not so productive. So, and then, of course, with good teachers, you learn, how to do it better. But mainly, for me, the big point is to try to find the motivation. Maybe this very quickly you can.
Yes. How don't practice?
No. How to want to have.
Como você quer
Want, querer.
Ok. Não. Ele falou que o primeiro ponto não a ideia, a pergunta não é como praticar, mas o que você quer. Como querer praticar, né? Porque é achar motivação, é isso.
Yeah, basically, I would say try to think, or maybe I ask. I need like 2 or 3 people that you tell me why do you practice. You tell me why do you practice.
Porque eu tenho que... Calma, porque eu pratico? Porque eu tenho que alcançar um nível técnico para poder to play my piece.
And do you want to practice?
Se eu gosto? Se eu quero? Não.
Yeah.
Eu pratico para poder fazer a música na melhor forma que eu conseguir.
Okay.
Eu pratico para tirar as limitações técnicas e na hora da performance poder transmitir o que eu quero.
Very good, thank you. And please.
Eu acho que eu pratico porque eu quero conhecer meu instrumento. Criar atividade.
And now, do you check if you say, okay, I was practicing this, and 2 months later you check and said, yes, I got better. Do you do this?
Sim.
Yeah. So,
Tá todo mundo entendendo?
Yeah.
Então, mais ou menos.
okay.
Mais ou menos.
Se não entender, fala então. Pode ser?
You need translation, maybe.
Quem?
No, Israel.
Sim.
Ele acabou de falar se você checa o seu estudo, se o que você estudou deu certo, tipo a cada 2 meses, se o que você fez funcionou.
Okay, so the first thing for me is like, let's try to remember that to practice is like to open the Pandora vase, vase de Pandora, and to practice is a creative process, and processo creativo. So as kids, as children, all children have feelings, all children have fantasy, all children have creative possibilities. You can see very, very young children, and they are like surprised, and they are sad, they are happy, they have doubts. These kinds of feelings are the same feelings you find in the music, and the fantasy you have as a kid, you have inside yourself, even if you are older like me or a little bit older like you guys. So when you start to practice, try first of all to remember that you are in love with the music and in love with the life, and eventually in love with your damned instrument, and try to remind yourself actually what do you like to do with your instrument. Because my point is like, I think the limit of the school, and I know the limit as myself when I teach. Sometimes I tell students what they have to do, but I don't always ask the student what they like to do. Can you translate?
Ok, ele falou que quando as crianças assim, sempre demonstram suas emoções, suas fantasias, elas ficam tristes, elas sentem dúvida, e tudo isso a gente encontra na música. E é muito importante a gente ter isso em mente, né, e ser apaixonado pelo que a gente está fazendo nas partes.
It's like teachers tell students what they have to do, but not what they like to do.
E assim, um problema é que os professores eles ensinam as pessoas o que eles têm que fazer, e não o que eles querem fazer.
So,
Gostam, né?
É, o que eles gostam.
so if you take like 3 famous violinists, Ivregitlis, you know? Okay. Hilary Hahn, you know, Cavacos. They play very differently, right? And so who is right and who is wrong?
Quem está certo e quem está errado.
Okay, todo mundo. So basically, it's the same when we practice. Of course, there is this kind of grammatic, like, you know, some rules we have to learn. Right.
Algumas regras a gente tem que aprender quando a gente estuda.
But then, what you really like is inside you, so it's important that you remind yourself what you like. Because if you like to do something, you do it very well. If you hate to do something, you do it very badly.
Ele falou que é sempre bom você relembrar o que você gosta, porque se você faz o que você gosta, você vai fazer muito bem. Mas se você faz o que você odeia, você provavelmente vai fazer isso muito mal.
So what does it mean? For me, when I open the cello case, it's like, oh, okay, another day of practicing. Oh, nice. So the first thing I try to do, I remember that Casals used to say that Pablo Casals was playing some Bach at the beginning when he just to santificare la casa, you know. But actually, I try to do something which I really like at the beginning, no matter how my fingers are still very hard and very slow, but something I like to remind myself, okay, I really love this, so now the hard work is coming. So at the beginning, it takes a while, because at the beginning it's like, okay, I mean, to go deep into things, you need a lot of strength and resistance. So it takes a while, but for me, it's super useful to remind myself how nice is the result I could get.
Ele falou que a primeira coisa que ele faz quando ele abre o cello, né, que ele não está com vontade de estudar, é fazer alguma coisa que ele gosta, né? Ele falou desse exemplo do Pablo Casals, que tocava bar para santificar lá a casa, mas que é muito importante, porque isso vai ativar um gatilho da tua motivação, porque daí depois que você relembra que você realmente ama aquilo que você faz, aí sim você vai para o trabalho duro, que exige muita resistência.
And another thing is like, if you don't have a lot of time, make sure that, okay, you have maybe only 20 minutes. Try to think how these 20 minutes could be productive for the next month.
Ele falou que se você não tem muito tempo, se você tem, sei lá, 20 minutos, você tem que pensar como que aqueles 20 minutos podem ser eficientes para o mês inteiro.
Because, I mean, I speak for myself. For me, many times, I still now, I kind of practice because of habits. I know I have to practice, so I take the new concerto, I have to learn, and I learn. And then I become very passive here, and maybe I spend like 1 hour, and I do something I could do in 10 minutes.
Ele falou que às vezes ele sente isso até hoje, é que ele vai praticar por hábito, ele vai estudar por hábito. Então ele pega um repertório, ele fica lá 1 hora no hábito, e depois ele percebe que ele poderia ter resolvido o problema em 10 minutos.
So, what I suggest, let's try not to practice because you feel you have to do. This is really, not generally for me, at least for me, is not very productive. For me, the most productive way is to become, how do you say, posseduto, like you know, when you get in trance, you have a ghost. Possuito, yeah. So you are like a ghost, and you have this fire inside, and said, okay, I can make it. Like, I mean, you need this extra inspiration, and then you can say, okay, I can climb the Everest. And when you have the inspiration, you can get it in many ways. Maybe if you have only half an hour, sometimes it's better not to touch your instrument, but you listen a piece with the score. And try to listen to this piece maybe many times, and try, you know, for me, what I take the score, I follow the violin part, and then I listen again, I follow the cello part, I listen again, I follow the flute part, time I learned something new. I know it's not, I mean, if you are not used, at the beginning it's a little bit hard, but what really helps me is like, try to think when you take a new book, you know. Now I was reading Pirandello, he's an Italian novelist, and the beginning was, oh God, it's so boring. And then, or like even some movies at the beginning is like, I don't understand anything. And after a while, after 10 minutes, maybe after 20 minutes, after some pages of the book, is like, wow, I want to see how it's going on. And it's the same for practicing for me. At the beginning, it's kind of boring, and then when you need to go under the surface, when you are inside, wow, then you never want to leave. So I think you got this point, right?
Yes.
More or less. Okay. So, and there was actually a teacher, he's very old in Berlino, Eberhard Feltz, a quartet teacher, violinist, and he used this expression, which for me is genius, is genial skizzieren, which I don't know how to translate, even in English, but to skizzieren means to have a sketch. You know what's a sketch? Like una prova. You know, it's not the final result, just a sketch, but a genius sketch. So, did you ever see some kind of sketch by Leonardo da Vinci or by Matisse? Or by, you know, exactly. I trust you. And but you have in mind. I was as a kid. I was really in love with Van Gogh. And I have many books of Van Gogh paintings. You have, you know, the sunflowers, you know, the famous sunflowers Van Gogh. But before the famous ones, which are in Amsterdam now, he made many kind of ensayo, you know, some sketches. And some they have no colors. But from the sketch, you can see that, wow, it's so beautiful already. So it's not, the details are not there, but the general idea is there. And for me, it's the same. We need, I mean, for me, I need, when I practice, to let this ghost appear in myself, and then I have this vision how a piece could be. And really, I'm in another world. I have this vision how this piece could be. I try to play. I sound like shit, but actually, I'm very inspired, and I am in contact with the sublime, you know. And then when I'm in contact with that, okay, I said, okay, I sounded like shit now, but now I can work. So, and if you start from the details, at least for me, if I start from the details, it becomes normale. And normale is boring. We say sciatto. Yeah. Okay, I learned something. So, genial skizzieren, or to have a genius sketch, is for me super inspiring, because you have the complete vision of what is your result. And I'm going to the next step. So the first one is like how to want to practice, and so to get inspired before you start with practice. So when you have the whole picture of what you need, I would say a very good point is to know the score. I would say conoscere il tragico. Okay. So if you know the score, actually you have the whole idea of the piece, and then you can basically plan your practice with a long-term plan. Yeah. So because let's say if you start, I don't know, a Brahms sonata, okay. Before you touch your instrument, I would say read the piano part, because I mean there are more notes there than in the violin or in the cello and the viola part. And basso. Botesini concerto.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Alguém que não entendeu? Tá. Você não entendeu, Nicolas?
É.
Eu vou falar tipo lá do rascunho que ele falou, do Van Gogh, né? Que esse scratches é o rascunho. Ele falou que ele sempre gostou muito do Van Gogh, e aí tem aquele quadro, né, dos girassóis. E antes de chegar naqueles girassóis, ele foi ver que tinha vários rascunhos do Van Gogh. E nos rascunhos assim, mais recentes, você já via muito bonito aquilo, por mais que não tinha detalhes. Ele falou que ele não gosta dos detalhes, assim, de começar pelos detalhes, porque detalhes é uma coisa chata, e ele sempre busca essa inspiração, esse espírito genial que ele falou, que é já montar o rascunho. Então, antes de ele começar a estudar, ele fica inspirado, então ele já começa a fazer uma coisa que ele gosta, então ele fica inspirado, entra em transe, né, vai para outra dimensão assim, e aí a partir disso ele já tenta fazer, por mais que não soe legal, mas ele já está inspirado para fazer acontecer. E aí o segundo tópico agora, né, que o primeiro foi como gostar de estudar, né? O segundo tópico é pegar a grade, estudar a grade antes de aprender a peça, que a partir disso você
So basically, when you have the score in front of you, you realize that the goal is actually maybe is bigger than you thought. It's like if you want to climb the Everest, you say, oh wow, it's so beautiful from here, but to go there is not as easy. So once you get to the score and you see your Everest mountain, then you say, okay, then I have to make a plan. So I need maybe some kind of preparatory training. So before I start climbing, I need to train myself, I need to calculate the time, I need to divide the whole route into steps. And so you have already organized your month. You understand? So you said, okay, in the first 3 days I do this, in the rest of the week I finish this, then I jump to another step, and then jump to another step. So exactly like sport, exactly like if you climb mountains, when you start this long-term journey, you might fail. It's possible to fail. It's possible that Italy doesn't qualify for the championship. That's life, But remember that it's very possible that you plan your month, you plan your 2 months. We are going to fail in between. Failure doesn't mean that we don't keep trying. I follow on Instagram some Italian, I would say, mountain climbers. He went to, the Nanga Parbat, the Everest, all the big mountains in Himalaya. And more than half of the times, he failed. But he's still alive. You understand? It's important that you plan your goals, you accept you are going to fail sometimes. This doesn't mean that you don't have to try again. That's part of the game.
Ok.
Yeah.
Ele falou então que quando você pega a grade para estudar, né, você percebe o tamanho do teu objetivo, quão longe aquilo está. Então, você tem a noção do tamanho do Everest. E aí é bom, depois que você analisa a grade, você planejar o teu mês. Assim como você planeja a tua caminhada, né? Como que eu faço para chegar até lá em cima? Então, nessa primeira semana eu vou fazer isso, na segunda eu vou fazer aquilo, depois eu vou fazer aquilo. E é normal que entre esses processos você acaba falhando, né? Errando, cometendo erros. E ele acompanha lá uns caras que sobem montanha, e eles também erram muito, mas isso não quer dizer que eles não vão chegar lá, né?
And with some of you we were speaking because with Carlos and Caio and Jesus and Felipe, we were playing Schubert Quintet. And we were speaking that I had the pleasure to play Schubert Quintet in September with Misha Maisky. And Misha Maisky we all know, and but that's not the point. Of course you can follow me on Instagram, I have the video. But basically, Misha Maisky always says that the last 2 competitions he did in his life when he was young, he failed. He didn't get to the finals. The last 2 competitions. And then, can you imagine, okay, I have this 2 last chance because maybe he was almost 30 years old. The last 2, he failed. How could he feel, okay, I'm really screwed up. I'm really, it's a shit level. But no, he's Misha Maisky. He had a vision, and he, like Ty was saying, don't let anybody, don't let, so don't let anybody give you excuses not to proceed on your journey. If there is an obstacle here, you can go that way and you still go on. So if it works for Maisky, it works for anybody of you.
Ele falou que pra gente não deixar as pessoas colocar desculpa pra gente não prosseguir, né? Porque ele deu o exemplo do Misha Maisky que as últimas 2 competições, quando ele era jovem, ele perdeu, ele não conseguiu ganhar. Mas mesmo assim ele é o Misha Maisky, ele não deixou isso pesar e desistir, não. Ele continuou seguindo. E se ele conseguiu, a gente consegue.
And the third point, which is part of the second as well, is like, and then I go to something more specific. I don't know how you feel, but especially when I start practicing in the day, could be the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, it doesn't matter. It's not my best playing in the morning, like I'm a bit slow. So I would say, if you have this long-term vision, try to remind yourself, don't feel guilty if something doesn't sound like you wish. Because practicing is like you open the Pandora vase or you open the rubbish can, you know? It's like practicing means that your hands are going to be very dirty. So don't feel guilty if there is some dirt inside your practicing. That's very normal. And as much dirt as you can hear when you practice, as much you can fix and make it better. So actually it's a good point.
Ele falou que o terceiro ponto, né, depois que está atrelado para o segundo, que você analisar o que você tem que fazer, e aí não se sentir culpado, porque geralmente quando eu acordo de manhã, dependendo de como você está se sentindo, você não está bem, pode soar ruim, nunca se sentir culpado, né, perceber a sujeira que está ali e sentir que a sujeira vai fazer parte. Você tem que abrir a caixa de Pandora, você tem que pôr a mão na lama e nunca se sentir culpado por causa disso.
So, and now to some kind of specific point, is like, what was the best empire of the history? Impero Romano, you know, of course in Italy. And, but what was the motto of the Impero Romano? Divide et impera. So you divide and you conquer.
Ele falou, né, agora indo para o quarto ponto, que qual foi o Império? Foi o Império Romano, e daí eles tinham um lema que fala, né, que é dividir e conquistar. Divide and conquer?
Yeah.
Dividir e conquistar.
And it's like what we saw in the Faf Coffee, in Fazenda Fortaleza. Is not only one fazenda, but your empire is made of many different parts producing coffee and creating the brand. And that's what we have to do when we practice. So it's not that we practice Brahms sonata. We divide Brahms sonata in many points, very different, and every fazenda of practicing is working differently.
Ele falou que, pegando isso, né, de dividir e conquistar, por exemplo, na fazenda, né, que não é uma coisa só, tem vários pontos que produzem e isso gera marca. E a gente tem que fazer isso no nosso estudo, quando pega a sonata do Brahms, não é a sonata do Brahms. São várias coisas, são várias fazendas dentro da sonata de Brahms que a gente precisa moldar e estudar.
So what are for me, I would say there are 6 points you can divide. First one is you should know the score.
Então, se a gente for dividir em 6 pontos, o primeiro vocês precisam saber a grade.
So,
Vão anotando aí.
As much as the score is already very clear and very deep in your head and in your memory, so try to memorize what is the score. Harmony, tempo, forma, everything. If it is already in your head, is much easier to practice.
Quanto mais estudado e memorizado estiver a grade, ele falou que tem que memorizar o ritmo, a harmonia, deixar lá, mais isso vai ajudar no estudo.
So if you want to memorize the score, you can sing it. So if you can sing the whole piece, it means that you know the whole piece. Or you can think about, you sing in your head, or you can dream about, which is something extra, is like awake, don't go to sleep. And if you can dream about, it means that you know how the music is, but you dream about, you project in your fantasy the best phrasing, how it could sound very beautiful. Because on the paper, the paper doesn't sound, but you can think, you can have this fantasy and you have a vision, okay, the phrasing could be like this, the dynamic could be like this.
E aí ele falou que imaginar, né? Então esse é o segundo ponto, agora eu perdi isso que ele falou.
Primeiro, é para conoscenza da partitura. You know the score. If you know you can sing, you can dream.
Isso sim, quando você conhece a partitura, quando você conhece a grade, você é capaz de cantar. Se você é capaz de cantar do início ao fim, é porque você conhece, você memorizou. E aí o papel, o iPad não soa, né? Mas a gente precisa tratar e também conseguir fantasiar, sonhar com isso na mente.
So second point is the gestuality, la gestualità, come si dice? So you don't only dream and have fantasy about the sounds, but you have fantasy about the gestures. You imagine yourself like a dancer, and you were dancing during this Ilumina festival, and you think about how this phrase should have a gesture.
E o segundo ponto agora, né, depois que você fantasiou toda a música na tua cabeça, é como você passar isso pro gesto.
So some gestures are chato, some gestures are like wow, and you have to create in your fantasy this. Then, so gradi, gestualità, arco means how to say distribuição. So first the subdivision of the bow, the distribution of the bow is very important. Try to divide the bow. If you can play in the lower half, you can play the upper half, you can play in the middle, which is also different. So what are the bow strokes? What is the legato? And actually the, I would say, the density. Densidade. So how much, we were doing during Schubert Quintet, how much on the surface you play, on the surface is, and how much deep into the string. Or, which I think everybody here needs a little bit to learn better, the sounding point, punto di contatto. You got the point, right? So, I mean, we have very little space between tasto and cavallecci, puente. So this little space has to be organized, because if you move like half a centimeter, it sounds differently. We saw also with the cellos. So remember, when you work about the bow, it's not only about the synchronization with the left hand, but it's about the quality of sound, which means also the speed of the bow, the sounding point, and the density.
Então, quando a gente vai estudar na mão direita o arco, não é só pensar que tem que estar sincronizado com a mão esquerda. Tem que pensar isso que eu vou dizer, né? A densidade, que é o quão superficial, o quão dentro da corda isso está, o ponto de contato e a distribuição, a velocidade.
So what I suggest, if you have any phrase, you can try to play the phrase at this contact point, sounding point, or try to play the phrase in another sounding point, and you hear how it sounds, and then maybe it's not here, it's not there, but it's in this direction or in that direction, you understand? It's like you divide 50-50, you say maybe it's not really white, but it's kind of light. It's not really black, but it's kind of dark. So this really helps to know in which direction you play tasto or cavallecce.
Entenderam isso aí?
Okay, of course, left hand, there is a lot about. So who of you thinks that you have some problems with intonation?
Quem acha que tem problema com afinação?
So who doesn't? So what do you think? I need three people different. What do you think is the main problem in intonation?
Três pessoas aí para falar qual o maior problema com afinação. A causa, né?
Ouvir? Vista? Ah, fala as três?
No, três pessoas.
Outra pessoa aí.
Coordenação?
Coordenação?
Colocar o dedo no lugar?
Mapeamento.
Okay. What about imagination?
Imaginação.
You understand what I mean? Do you have, who of you, tell me, how many people have already this habit that when you practice intonation, before playing, before listening, you imagine the sound?
Quem de vocês aí antes de tocar, de ouvir, imagina o
Five.
som antes?
Five, yeah, not so many. So try, before you play, I mean, let's say, the ears are telling you something which exists already.
Os ouvidos, eles falam uma coisa que já existe.
But the main problem when we play an instrument is that when you play a bad sound, or a sound which is not out of tune, or bad quality, it's too late.
O problema é que quando a gente toca um som que não está legal, não está com afinação boa, já está tarde.
So what we need to do is to predict how the physical movement could get to the sounding effect. So what I suggest is really try to also you can use the tuner, but try to imagine the note in your head, and then check with the tuner how far is your imagination. Because like for me, I have to tell you, when I play mi on the prima accorda, when I think, oh, it's good, it's always too flat. That's my problem. So there are some notes I hear wrong. I got used when they told me a couple of times, they said, your mi is really flat. I said, no, it's beautiful. And then I listen to my recording and say, oh shit, it's so flat. And, but there are some notes that maybe we are used to hear wrong. I think it's good to get used to know which notes we have in the DNA that we feel right, and which note we have to adjust. So it's a matter, again, of imagination. I think they got it right.
Só para resumir, assim, rapidinho. Ele falou que às vezes a gente tem essa da imaginação, mas às vezes tem notas que a gente pensa errado. Por exemplo, você pensou no mi, aí quando você toca, sempre está baixo. Então é bom mapear quais notas a gente já tem aí no DNA prontas no ouvido, que está claras, e qual que a gente tem dificuldade de conseguir pensar antes.
So another point connected to this, the next point, is the ability to listen to yourself. And this is the most difficult part, because what you think is sounding here is not really the reality. Because, I mean, we are behind the instrument and the audience is in the front of your instrument. I mean, we hear the sound very differently. So the ability to listen to yourself, I think, comes from, and I think you all do, you record yourself and you listen to yourself, and many times you have surprises. Like, surprise could be that you listen to yourself and say, I thought it was good, it's really bad. Or, I thought it was shit, but it's very good. So, I mean, we are not really able to evaluate sometimes. But another thing is to develop the external ear. So, because the kind of sound I have here is never the same which is there. So, I maybe now we have no time really to do it, but I think we can do with a couple of people so you understand what it means. If you put your hands like this, and you speak and you say your name and said, hi, good morning, I'm Giovanni, your voice is really different. Can you try?
Wow.
Nossa, que estranho.
But if you speak, okay, but I mean, it has to do by one person. If you speak all together, it doesn't work. And let's say if you put not like this, but like this, and you listen, it's very different. Why? Because if I'm speaking like this, my voice goes direct. If I speak like this, my voice is going around, so it's more I would say resonante. So what I hear when I play is this one. So sometimes actually you think it's really bad quality, but there is actually good quality, because all the kind of barullo you have here, there maybe doesn't sound like. So try to get used when you listen, when we play, to imagine how it sounds in the last row. So you have kind of to have a bit schizophrenico. So you have somebody playing and another personality, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, there. And you have to constantly to be in contact with your Mr. Hyde. Don't kill people, but ask them.
Ele falou que esse outro ponto é ter esse hábito de aprender a se ouvir, porque o que a gente toca aqui não é a realidade, né? Porque são por diversos fatores. E ele falou que é importante desenvolver esse ouvido externo. Ele fez esse exercício, né? Como muda a sonoridade por causa da ressonância. E aí é sempre imaginar que tem um Mr. Hyde lá, tipo, na última fileira, e enquanto você toca, você está se ouvindo de lá.
Exatamente. And the last point for me is knowing your body. Because, of course, teniamo due strumenti, violino, la viola, violoncello, arco, but the most sophisticated instrument is your body. And anybody here, if you go to a luthier, in 2 months you can build a violin. You know, it's very easy. I had a friend, when she was 13, she made her own cello, because she had no money, so she went to the luthier every afternoon, and luthier said, okay, do this, and in 2 months she made her cello, and she was playing Voce Concerto on her cello. I said, what? Really? 13 years old? I mean, she played when she was older, but 13 years old, but for me that was the example that to build an instrument, actually actually, of course, it's complex, but it's not that difficult. To build a hand is still now, with all this kind of research, is a robotic. Nobody can have, no robot can have this sensitivity on the hand. So the body is much more complex instrument than your actually violin.
Yeah.
Então, esse último ponto é conhecer o seu corpo, que o nosso corpo é muito mais complexo que o instrumento. Então, ele deu o exemplo de um colega dele que em 2 meses conseguiu construir um cello do zero e tocou o concerto de Dvorak. Para ver, por mais que tenha as minúcias, ainda é algo simples comparado assim à forma da nossa mão. Por mais que a ciência já tenha se desenvolvido muito, não existe nada que compare a nossa sensibilidade. Então, o nosso corpo é realmente complexo, muito mais complexo que isso.
So just to remember, for me, if you can have in mind the 6 points, it was like you should know the score.
Então, saiba da grade.
You develop imagination of the gestuality,
Então,
kind of
gesto.
danza. Of course, arco,
Arco.
mano izquierda. You should listen to yourself. You should get to know your body.
Isso.
And everything for the goal, have fun when you practice. It should be fun. It should be something that, wow, you feel like superstar, rock star. Thank you.
Tem que ser divertido.